Welcome back. Philippine real estate developer AboitizLand's responds to the new norm through digital selling. So how does that work for the home buyer or buyers of industrial and commercial spaces? With us now for more is AboitizLand's CEO, Dave Rafael. Good to see you, Dave. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Kathy, and thank you for inviting me.
Sure. So how does that work, selling a home online?
Okay. When you look at real estate, it's one of the industries where technology hasn't really had that much of an impact as compared, for example, in retail or let's say the music industry where technology has really disrupted it. When you look at real estate, particularly in selling, it's been pretty much traditional where the agents will try to get prospects by being in the mall and leafleting or maybe putting up big billboards with a contact number. And then after they get a qualified prospect, they will have face-to-face meetings, bring them to the showroom, trip them to the site, and then after that, when the buyer is sold, they will close the sale. Documentation is pretty much again face-to-face with a lot of paper and a lot of paper. So very traditional. But now that you've got this lockdown, that's not available. These face-to-face meetings, these strippings, these paper transactions are not available. So you really have to find a way to bring all of these three basic steps, accomplish them digitally. And we've done that, I think, fairly successfully with AboitizLand. In terms of getting prospects, we don't have agents leafleting in malls, but rather we do digital prospecting through boosting in social media, and then we do when the prospect is interested, they will communicate with us through email we can arrange a digital meeting with an agent, and then we can show them all the projects through a 360 digital tour. And once they have expressed an interest, we can do the documentation, again, all through email, the reservation forms. We have e-signature facilities, the payments of reservations. We've got various payment platforms so that they can pay whatever needs to be paid just in the comforts of their home.
Right, so basically, Dave, it's contactless end-to-end home buying where your agent and the prospective client never physically see each other in the flesh. So how can a client have an appreciation of the feel of the home he or she is buying?
Okay, I think, well, the digital tour, the 360 digital tour is very important. I think we've invested a lot in really curating it and developing it so that they really get as accurate and as detailed a view of the property. Number two, I think it helps that our sellers are very well trained and are very engaging and are very trustworthy, so that the information that they give is it's well received. And finally, I think the brand, the company brand, really is very important. Aboitiz has a very distinguished reputation in various businesses. So I think when you take all of those three together, it makes contactless selling really a lot easier.
Have you tried it, this end-to-end contactless sort of selling? Because most often it's really how the places feels like when you're there that seals the deal. It's yet another one of those high-touch businesses that elicit some kind of an emotional investment before the actual purchase.
Yeah, well, of course, I'm not this type of selling is, face-to-face selling is still going to be superior. I mean, through this contactless selling, we're only doing about 50 to 60% of our normal sales before lockdown. So it's really it's far away from our normal sales achievements, right? But we got no choice, right? We gotta pivot and we gotta adjust. So I think that once all of these GCQs and ECQs would be lifted, I think there will still be a return to physical, to face-to-face selling, tripping. That'll happen. But I think, but with this experience, I think we just opened up a whole new way of selling. I mean, particularly, let's say for the overseas for the overseas market. I mean, how was international sales being done previously? We would send sellers go out there in Europe, the US, in Australia to actually do presentations to the OFWs. They're very expensive, right? But now with this, maybe we can sell to these overseas Filipino market in this contactless digital way. It has proven to be effective.
Are you making a move to actually sell to them right now as they come home from flights overseas and get into NAIA? Is any initiative being done towards that?
Well, admittedly, one of the hardest hit, one of the most vulnerable segments that have been hit by this COVID is really the OFW market. So we've seen a slowdown in terms of sales from that channel, right? So but let me tell you, Kathy, the interest in property based on the number of inquiries that we're getting it continues to be quite healthy. It's just that a lot of them are I guess waiting for the right time, have the right confidence that they will have the long-term financial capability to really buy property. But the interest is there.
So how many inquiries have you received during the lockdown, and have you made an actual sale virtually?
Yes. Yeah, as I said, in terms of inquiries, we are getting the same, in fact, even more inquiries during this lockdown. But in terms of actually closing sales, as I mentioned, we're doing about 50 to 60% of our sales from the pre-lockdown period, which, of course, it's not great, but it's still better than nothing, right?
It is. So how do you foresee that increasing? I mean, a lot of consumers right now are still thinking about buying essentials rather than discretionaries, big ticket items that they can think about later on.
I agree with that. I think that the key really is for the demand to go back. I mean, no matter what kind of stimulus efforts the government could do to lower interest rates and all, unless there is that demand, which will come from people having confidence, getting their jobs back, factories and businesses being reopened, OFWs being redeployed, that has to happen so that confidence and that demand will return.
Does it help that you are located in provinces? Interesting to note that your provinces, properties are in provinces, properties that are anchored by industrial park estates.
Right.
Who are you targeting to be your key market post-pandemic?
AboitizLand is basically in three segments, right? Residential, commercial, and industrial. But the segment that we're very strong in is industrial. We have 650 hectares in Lima, in Lipa. We have about 550 hectares in Cebu, in Balanban, and another 80 hectares in Mactan. And when you total the number of people who work in all these three industrial estates, it almost comes out to 100,000. Right? So we're very strong in the industrial sector. And among all the different segments of the property market, we are most optimistic about industrial. Why? We're looking at two trends, right, that I think will be very positive. One is, I think you've heard of China Plus One, where I think a lot of, China is the manufacturing, is a global manufacturing center of the world, right? And I think a lot of these companies that have concentrated their manufacturing facilities in Japan have learned a very important lesson. You can't put all your eggs in one basket. So a lot of them are maybe going to relocate, or if not, they will now start looking for backup locations. In fact, you've heard of Japan incentivizing the Japanese companies, you've heard of the US. So you're going to see a lot of that. And I think that trend, the Philippines will be a beneficiary. In fact, the other day, I just read about Senator Drilon urging Filipinos to be more proactive in trying to lure these manufacturers from China to the Philippines. The second trend is the Balik Probinsya, which is being initiated and spearheaded by the Philippine government. And we find that very interesting, no? The government is going to incentivize manufacturing as well as residents to move out and decongest Metro Manila to go to other areas, right, where they can find work, they can live, and and the our industrial estate format is perfect, which is why we're reformatting it so that it's just not going to be an industrial estate. It's going to be a township where we will have industrial as perhaps the main use, but we will complement it with commercial, residential, institutional use so that it's a live, work, play environment. We're going to do that in Lima, in Batangas, and we're going to do that with our other industrial estates in Cebu. And I think that in terms of capability, I think AboitizLand is in the best position to execute this because number one, we're already in the industrial estate. We have the experience and the track record in operating industrial estates. And number two, we've got the complementary facilities, namely power and water, which is going to be provided by our sister companies to provide reliable and reasonably priced infrastructure.
It helps to be well positioned as you await for the buyers to come back. And do let us know when that sale is made online. The very first sale, I want to know what happens. Dave, you keep well. Dave Rafael of AboitizLand.
Okay.